Hi guys, this is Ukraine today. Ukrainian soldiers dealt a significant blow to the occupiers. They repelled all Russian assaults near Pokrovsk and Kupyansk. Good drones targeted energy facilities in Russian cities. As a result, Russia's oil product exports have fallen to the lowest level since the start of the full-scale invasion. A message from Putin to the West and personally to Trump. Russia attacked Ukraine with a cruise missile capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. Russia's strikes on Ukraine pose a real threat to Europe's nuclear safety. This comes from an urgent IAEA statement. While the civilized world waits, Putin continues to kill Ukrainian civilians with impunity. In Sumy, a recent attack injured 11 people, including 4 children. The US and China are working together to end the war in Ukraine. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. I am Sima and you're watching our news update. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, it really helps us grow. And in the comments, let us know where you're watching from and whether you stand with Ukraine in our fight against the occupiers. Your support truly matters. Russian forces are still launching failed assaults along almost every section of the front line. The heaviest fighting right now is taking place near the cities of Pokrovsk and Kupyansk. As winter approaches and the intensity of combat usually drops, Putin is demanding victories at any cost, and his generals are throwing soldiers into mass suicide attacks, losing thousands of men. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, the Pokrovsk direction saw the highest number of clashes in the past 24 hours. Ukrainian defenders repelled 48 enemy assaults. Heavy fights are happening around Kupansk, where Ukrainian defense forces are holding the line and preventing further Russian advances. Despite loud claims from the Kremlin about allegedly encircling Ukrainian troops, these are lies spread by Putin and his generals. The reality on the ground is very different. We will show you what's really happening on the front lines and reveal the truth behind Russia's propaganda.
Fighting for control over the city of Kupyansk, a major transportation hub in the Kharkiv region, continues.
The situation in Kupyansk remains difficult, but these days there is more control on our side. We continue to defend our positions.
Against this backdrop, Russian propaganda has once again released another batch of fake news. The bunker dweller claimed that Ukrainian forces in Kupyansk are surrounded and blocked. In
the city of Kupyansk and in the city of Krasnoarmysk, the enemy, as it turned out, was effectively blocked and completely surrounded. By the way, I have discussed this particular issue with the commanders of the relevant group. They have indicated that they are not opposed to allowing media representatives, including foreign journalists, into the enemy's encirclement zone. Ukrainian journalists, so that they could go in and see with their own eyes firsthand exactly what is happening there and see for themselves with their own direct observation the current condition and situation of the Ukrainian troops who are now surrounded, and so that the political leadership of Ukraine would be able to make the most appropriate and well-informed decisions regarding the fate and future of its citizens and its servicemen, taking into account all the circumstances and the information they have received.
But these statements have nothing to do with reality. This is the painfully familiar old Kremlin tactic: media blackmail and an attempt to demoralize Ukrainian society.
As of today, I believe the situation has been stabilized, and I hope that our security and defense forces will be able to do everything to ensure that Kupyansk is not captured by the enemy.
In reality, this is not an encirclement, but rather heavy local fighting.
The main direction of the occupiers' attack is not Kupyansk itself, but Kupyansk-Vuzlovyi. The occupiers' plans include the possibility of establishing control over this key railway station.
As of October 30th, Ukrainian forces maintain control over most of Kupyansk and key transportation hubs. Russian occupiers have entrenched themselves in small groups on the northern outskirts of the city and in the western part, creating a foothold for further attempts at an offensive.
In other words, they are trying to change their tactics and strategy of combat operations in urban environments. This is fundamentally different from the tactics used in the battles for Bakhmut, 2.5 years ago, when the occupiers used a large amount of armored vehicles and accordingly the so-called local assault tactics to establish control over this settlement.
The main threat remains the northern directions and the enemy's attempts to break through to the highway. Kharkiv, Kupyansk, Svatove. This route is vital for supplying Ukrainian units on the eastern bank of the Oskil River. From the south and east, Russian forces have been unable to approach the city. The main supply route for the Ukrainian armed forces remains through the Kupyansk-Uzlovy railway station and the embankment dam across the Oskil. The dam is periodically subjected to enemy airstrikes, but it remains operational, and pontoon crossings serve as backup roads.
So the main goal and strategic objective of the occupiers is not to advance deeper into the Kharkiv region, but rather to repeat the scenario of 2022, when the Izium grouping of occupiers was considered one of the most combat-capable and aimed for an operational encirclement of Ukrainian units precisely in the area of the Sloviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. That is the main goal. In other words, the strategic objective of the occupiers is to establish full control over the territory of Donetsk region.
But the enemy has run into the tough defense of the Ukrainian armed forces. Counterattacks by Ukrainian troops are holding back the Russian advance.
At the moment, Ukraine's defense forces are conducting counter-sabotage operations in order to prevent Russian occupiers from infiltrating. Next is the urban area and the direct approach to gaining control over Kupyansk railway junction.
Kupyansk is not just another point on the map. It is a symbol of resilience, endurance, and military stamina. The Russian army is trying to wear the city down, but the Ukrainian defense is holding strong. And no matter how much the Kremlin tries to present wishful thinking as reality, the truth is on the side of those defending their home. And step by step, they are driving the enemy out of Ukrainian land.
Ukrainian drones recently struck key energy facilities in the Russian cities of Oryol, Vladimir, and Yaroslavl. In Yaroslavl, an oil refinery was hit. The fuel from this facility is used to supply the occupiers' military equipment. Meanwhile, Russia's export of oil products has dropped to its lowest level since the start of 2022, when Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine, according to Bloomberg. The main reasons are the ongoing Ukrainian drone strikes, which have halted operations at many refineries, and the tightening of Western sanctions, which has led to a near collapse of Russia's energy trade. Every day, Ukraine successfully strikes key targets vital to the Russian military, both deep inside Russia and on occupied territories. The Ukrainian armed forces are increasing the intensity and variety of these attacks day by day. These successes are made possible by new technologies and modern weapons, which an increasing share of domestically produced arms. For example, Flamingo missiles have already reached Moscow, while long-range strike drones Palyanytsia, Bober, and Lyuty continue to destroy Russian oil refineries. We will also show you what other weapons Ukraine is using to dismantle the occupiers' war machine in the coming reports.
Distances of hundreds or even thousands of kilometers are no obstacle for Ukrainian weaponry, Russian oil refineries.
Well, yeah, that's obvious. The refineries are butchered. That's clear even without saying it.
Key facilities of the military-industrial complex and the Russian war machine.
Honestly, it's a nightmare. Damn, it's getting wild.
And recently, in response to the ongoing shelling of Ukraine's civilian infrastructure, Ukrainian forces have also started targeting critical infrastructure in Russia.
No way! Fuck! I can't believe it! No way! Fuck! No way! Fuck!
Burek, look.
Where are we going? Now that's a ride! No way! Fuck!
When the Kremlin threatens Ukrainians with blackouts, Russians should also prepare for a cold and difficult winter.
If they threaten blackouts, for example, in the capital of Ukraine, the Kremlin should realize that a blackout will also come to the Russian capital.
For a long time, Western allies restricted Ukraine's ability to strike deep into Russian territory, as a result of which Ukraine expanded its own long-range arsenal. According to the head of Ukrainian intelligence, Kirilo Budanov, today 99% of strikes on Russian oil refineries are carried out with Ukrainian weapons.
Back when all this started, when people said we were fighting with one hand tied behind our back, I tend to agree with your view that this is the right interpretation of what was happening then. But now we have our own production, and it is precisely our domestic production that has given us the ability to use our forces and resources the way we see fit.
The Kremlin understands only the language of force. The best argument in any negotiations with Moscow is a powerful Ukrainian army and military-industrial complex. In particular, our own production of long-range drones and missiles, with which Ukraine regularly strikes targets in Russia located thousands of kilometers or more from the front line.
In order to somehow bring this war to a stalemate, to shift it, we need to learn not only to repel enemy attacks on the front line, but also to suppress their logistics and their aviation. That's why these measures were needed. And I'm not even mentioning the necessity of striking military-industrial complex facilities. And Russia's energy system.
This is Belgorod. Basically, it's a mess here. There's no electricity anywhere in Belgorod at all.
If the simplest drones to manufacture are used for strikes on Russian oil refineries, jet-powered drones are better suited for targeting military-industrial facilities, like the Polyanite, Peklo and Bars types. Their technical specifications are not disclosed. Experts suggest that the range of these jet-powered drones is between 500 and 700 kilometers. The main advantage is their low cost compared to cruise missile competitors.
Cities like Moscow and Leningrad, which are among the most heavily protected by Russian air defense systems, could potentially start getting hit every evening. The bars can reach those cities, and I believe this should happen systematically.
For dessert, the occupiers are in for a treat with Ukrainian long-range missiles, the long-range Neptunes and the Flamingo, with ranges of 1,000 and 3,000 kilometers respectively. The Ukrainian Pink Bird, in addition to its enormous range, impresses with a warhead weighing about 1,000 kilograms.
Usually the warhead of a modern cruise missile is 450, at most 500 kilograms. As a rule, almost all missiles have a 450 kilogram warhead. What does a 1-ton warhead provide? If it hits a target, for example, an industrial facility, 2 such missiles will completely disable it for at least a year. That is, there will be a single crater about 20 meters in diameter.
Russian terrorists who are shelling Ukrainian cities must understand, a mirrored strike will definitely come.
Russia recently launched a 9M729 cruise missile at Ukraine, a weapon capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. The first strikes were recorded in August, less than a week after the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. Since then, at least 23 launches of this missile type have been reported across Ukrainian territory. It was the secret development of this missile back in 2019 that led the US to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. At the time, Washington stated that Russia's possession of this missile violated the treaty, as its range of 2,500 kilometers was 5 times over the allowed limit. From our perspective, launching these missiles at Ukraine is yet another slap in the face to Trump from Putin. Russia's attacks pose a real threat to Europe's nuclear safety. The International Atomic Energy Agency has warned that Russian strikes have hit critical substations, endangering the safe operation of nuclear power plants. At the Thos, Ukraine and Khmelnytsky NPPC, access to external power lines was lost, and at the Rivne NPP, 2 of 4 reactors had to reduce output upon request from the energy system. International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Grossi has issued a stark warning. The nuclear safety threat is real and constant. By targeting Ukraine's energy infrastructure, Putin is playing with fire because Ukraine's safety is linked to the security of all Europe. While the world hesitates to act, Putin continues to kill Ukrainian civilians with impunity. In the city of Sumy, a recent Russian attack injured 11 people, including 4 children. While Ukrainian forces strike exclusively at military infrastructure, Russia continues to target residential areas and civilian objects. In one incident, a 9-story residential building caught fire on its upper floors, destroying 5 apartments and 7 balconies. The rescue teams managed to evacuate 12 residents safely. Nearby 2 private buildings were also set ablaze, and a single-story house with 5 apartments was damaged by the blast wave.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
The US and China are working together to end the war in Ukraine, according to President Donald Trump.
We talked about it for a long time, and we will both work together to try to do something. We agreed that the sides, have taken positions and are fighting, and sometimes you have to let them fight, probably madness. But he will help us, and we will work together on Ukraine.
Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping met in Busan, South Korea, their first face-to-face meeting since Trump's new term began. The White House leader described the meeting as remarkable. It's hard to measure just how successful it was, but the global economy and stock markets responded positively. Whether this dialogue will actually bring the war closer to an end remains to be seen. We will explore that in our report.
Donald Trump met with Xi Jinping in South Korea as part of his tour of the Indo-Pacific region. The main topics of the meeting were trade barriers between the countries and, of course, the Russia-Ukraine war.
They agreed to develop a more forward-looking joint agenda for political dialogue, which in principle is a very positive outcome of this meeting. In
the result of the meeting, the parties agreed to reduce the tariff from 20% to 10%. This tariff concerns Chinese goods related to fentanyl, a synthetic opioid analgesic. The overall level of U.S. tariffs will reach up to 47%.
The fundamental issues underlying the conflict between the U.S. and China have not gone away. And these are very important questions, such as the fate of the island of Taiwan and the possibility of imposing tariffs on Chinese goods, specifically because of the purchase of Russian oil. Trump said that these issues were not raised diplomatically. But in such cases, when you don't reach an agreement, you just say that you didn't talk about it.
The agreements regarding Ukraine turned out to be less productive. Despite the fact that, according to the US president, Ukraine was discussed at length. Initially, Trump wanted to persuade Xi to reduce support for Russia so that Putin would agree to end the war. Whether the parties reached an agreement in this regard was not announced.
The strategic dialogue of cooperation has been established between authoritarian Russia and authoritarian Beijing. And in order to risk it, Xi would need something in return. For that, he would have to receive something more substantial and significant, something that would match the high level of relations between America and Beijing, given that for now relations are more strongly reminiscent of a logic of de-escalatory actions in the trade and economic sphere, and I wouldn't say that a true strategic alliance or an ongoing formalized dialogue has been established between Washington and Beijing.
Donald Trump rated the meeting a 12 out of 10. By the way, this was the first meeting between the leaders of the US and China in the past 6 years.
Based on the statement, we see that there won't be any tariffs on Chinese goods, and there will be access for American agricultural products. It seems like a good statement. But how true that really is, again, looking at Trump's presidency, we remember at least Trump's statement that peace had been achieved in the Middle East after 3,000 years. I'm someone who reads news from the Middle East, and what's happening there doesn't even come close to reminding me of peace being achieved in that region. So Trump's statement that everything has been agreed with China, that everything is wonderful, but let's at least wait 48 hours and then see what happens.
Trump said that he had agreed with Xi Jinping on a visit to China in the spring of next year. After that, a return visit by the Chinese leader to the United States will follow.
Ukrainian investigators have identified 5 Russian soldiers responsible for killing, torturing and raping civilians in the city of Bucha, Kyiv region in 2022. They have now been charged. During their occupation, these military criminals killed at least 17 civilians. Thanks to hundreds of eyewitness and victim testimonies, numerous forensic examinations and photo and video evidence, their investigation confirmed that the crimes were committed by soldiers from the 234th Air Assault Regiment of Russia's 76th Division. The accused include a platoon commander, 2 senior sergeants, a junior sergeant, and a senior soldier. The spiders in the Kremlin's jar continue to devour each other. Another quarrel has erupted among the warmongers. One of the most notorious propagandists, Sergei Mardan, attacked Natalia Poklonskaya, a former prosecutor of Crimea and a former supporter of Russia. She unexpectedly renounced a Putin-style Christianity and became a pagan, even changing her name to Radvedu. Mardan couldn't handle this shocking blow to the regime's foundations. He mocked her actions and even publicly shared her personal information. We will cover all the details of this infighting among Russia's war promoters in our report.
A lot of miracles are happening.
The former pseudo-prosecutor of Crimea, Natalia Poklonskaya, has changed her name to a made-up neo-pagan one.
And now a miracle has happened to me too.
The name has been officially changed. According to the Russian tax authorities, the prosecutor's new documents are now registered under the name Poklonskaya Radveda Vladimirovna.
All the land is
an ancient, magnificent kingdom.
Ready? Natalia Poklonskaya is unrecognizable. She used to be an official in Crimea, but now she's turned to paganism and is experimenting with her appearance.
This is our faith. This is what still keeps us going. We take the icon of the Holy Sovereign and the royal family.
Poklonskaya was a fanatic, an Orthodox believer, and traveled to Russian and Crimean monasteries. She even took part in the Immortal Regiment March with a portrait of Nicholas II and was spouting nonsense about the Tsar's bust in Crimea exuding myrrh.
The bust of Nicholas II, our sovereign, which we installed in the park near the chapel, began to exude myrrh.
She was actively supported by Russian quasi-religious organizations such as Sorokov.
This film offends the feelings of Orthodox believers. Young people use drugs, consume alcohol, and of course listen to this non-stop, this electronic music.
What happened to the Orthodox Christian woman in all of Russia? Not long ago, Poklonskaya was accused of promoting paganism after her lecture to school children about Slavic runes.
falsification of national history, diminishing the role of Christianity. In the creation of our nation's statehood, there is a certain challenge to the true values of the Russian world.
On Halloween in 2024, she dressed up as a witch and told everyone about the great Slavic holiday of Samhain. Various representatives of the Russian Orthodox Church reacted to this, to put it mildly, negatively.
Well, it's sad. It's sad to watch a person as their consciousness becomes deformed, as a person is destroyed. Such a personality shift when a person not only leaves orthodoxy, the church, but goes over to the dark side, to satanic forces, and not only leaves, but drags others along with them.
Poklonskaya was asked to comment on the criticism from Russian priests, to which she responded unexpectedly.
I'm not interested in the opinions of people who use the Christian religion, which I have nothing to do with, so I don't comment on their statements.
The change of name by Natalia Poklonskaya in a community where the former Crimean prosecutor had long been considered almost an icon of the annexation sparked a collective hysteria. How could the symbol of the Russian Spring disgrace them like this?
Let us pray that the Lord in His mercy does not bring punishment upon these people.
Some especially loyal defenders of spiritual values even hinted that Poklonskaya might not be mentally stable. After all, for armchair Russian patriots, this is roughly as if the St. George ribbon suddenly declared it wanted to become a rainbow.
We swear to honor the memory of the soldiers of the great victory.
At the same time, the propagandist Vardan laughed at her on Solovyov's show.
Thus, Poklonskaya completed the ritual of debaptism. Well, as far as I can tell. In her opinion, simply renouncing Christ wouldn't be enough. The magical mindset, which had already damaged the former prosecutor's traumatized mind, demanded some kind of colorful ceremony, a ritual that would complete the transformation of a 45-year-old woman, baptized in honor of the Orthodox holy martyr Natalia of Nicomedia into a true witch.
For this, Poklonskaya sued him, noting that it was a disclosure of personal data, and for insult, honor, and dignity.
A neurotic little lady. Here, Comrade Marden, I think that's you. Eggs aren't always what gets in the way of a dancer. Sometimes that expression has a different meaning. But for example, not everyone has them, as it seems you do. I realized that back in 2014.
Poklonskaya has repeatedly found herself in scandals.
Here, I'm the prosecutor, so there will be no cutesy stuff. And so on, I simply won't allow it at all.
In 2014, Natalia Poklonskaya became a collaborator after the occupation of Crimea and headed the peninsula's prosecutor's office. But from Nyashmayash in 2014, by 2022, she had turned into a dove of peace and condemned the war.
I'm calling for unity, I'm calling for peace and coming together. We are united. Resentment and accusations against each other are growing every day and will only lead to even greater division, to a split.
She called for accepting the choices of others and spoke about Russian conscripts fighting in Ukraine.
The letter Z symbolizes tragedy and grief for both Russia and Ukraine. Why? Because people are dying. Both Russian soldiers, Russian citizens and parents are receiving all kinds of news. This is a tragedy. After all, the Ministry of Defense says this many have died, this many are wounded. Is that something to be happy about?
For allowing herself too much, Putin dismissed Natalia Poklonskaya from her position as deputy head of Rosotrudnichestvo. She held this post for only a few weeks before the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began.
Who else but the leading political force which was created by our greatest, our very best president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
Poklonskaya disappeared from the radar, no longer attracting close attention.
I honestly tried to become the conscience of the Duma. I didn't make it in time.
When she returned to the public sphere as a pagan, the Russian people did not accept her.
Everything is fine. Everything is great.
The collaborator herself refused to admit that she had turned to paganism and instead said that she changed her personal information to avoid a supposed assassination attempt.
I am under the state protection of my country, Russia. Personal data, including place of residence, last name, first name, and patronymic, can be changed as part of such measures. Their dissemination poses not just a theoretical but a very real threat to me and my family.
An ethnic Ukrainian who betrayed her homeland, now a stranger and outcast even in Russia.
Hello, friends. I want to remind various political experts, there are a lot of so-called experts these days, that insulting people based on their nationality is punishable by law. Be careful with your statements. We are all equal.
After the annexation of Crimea, the Kremlin used her and then discarded her. Traitors are despised everywhere.
Putin's repression continues according to plan. In St. Petersburg, a pensioner was fined for wearing a Peace for Ukraine pin. At the Levashova Memorial Cemetery, law enforcement detained Mikhailo Pushnitsky simply for refusing to remove a pin in the colors of the Ukrainian flag, which read Peace for Ukraine. He was taken to the police station and charged under the article for discrediting the army. The court found him guilty and imposed a fine of 30,000 rubles, which is higher than the average pension in the region.
Where are they taking you?
To court.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so more people can learn the truth. See you next time, and glory to Ukraine.